The city skyline glows against the dark sky, the heartbeat of New York City alive with the rhythm of nightlife. Malcolm Carter steps out of his sleek black luxury car, the soft hum of the engine fading as he straightens his tailored suit. The weight of success rests comfortably on his shoulders tonight. This isn't just another evening, it's a celebration. A major real estate deal has just closed, and what better way to toast to victory than a night out at one of the city's most exclusive nightclubs? Jamal whistles low as he steps onto the sidewalk beside Malcolm. Man, you really outdid yourself this time. That deal? Legendary. Malcolm chuckles, adjusting his cufflinks. Had to make sure it was airtight. You know how it is. Their colleagues, dressed sharp and exuding the quiet confidence of men accustomed to winning, fall into step behind them. The club's entrance is alive with movement. Patrons ushered in with ease, laughter spilling from the doorway, music pulsing. From within, Malcolm watches as group after group is waved through. No hesitation, no questions. He's been here before, but tonight something feels different. At the entrance, Derek Mason stands like a stone guardian, eyes scanning the crowd, his thick arms folded across his chest. When Malcolm and his group approach, Derek's expression shifts. He straightens, his jaw tightening. Not tonight, Derek says flatly, as if the decision has already been made. Malcolm's brow furrows. We're on the guest list. Check under Carter. Derek doesn't move, doesn't even pretend to check the list. I don't care who you think you are. We have a certain crowd we let in here. The words land like a slap. Malcolm exhales through his nose, keeping his voice even. A certain crowd, huh? Just then, a group of young white men, dressed in ripped jeans and sneakers, stroll past the velvet rope. Derek barely glances at them before waving them inside. Jamal stiffens beside Malcolm. Man, you see this? Malcolm's jaw clenches, but his voice remains calm. You're telling me we don't meet the standard, but they do? Derek shrugs, smirking. Like I said, not tonight. A murmur ripples through the crowd forming around them. A woman whispers to her date, "Isn't that Malcolm Carter?" A few people pull out their phones, subtly recording. Jamal steps forward, voice tight with restrained anger. You're gonna regret this, man. Derek lets out a dry laugh. What, you gonna call the manager? Good luck. The air shifts. Malcolm has been in enough rooms with powerful men to recognize arrogance when he sees it. Derek is sure of himself, certain of his power. The final blow comes when Derek reaches out, placing a firm hand on Malcolm's shoulder before shoving him back, as if Malcolm were just another nameless, unimportant body. Malcolm stumbles, but catches himself, rolling his shoulders as he exhales slowly. The sting of public humiliation cuts deep, deeper than he expected. Jamal glares. We're really walking away from this? Malcolm glances up at the neon-lit sign of the club, the very business he owns. A slow smirk plays at the corner of his lips as he straightens his jacket. Not here. Not now. He turns on his heel, stepping away from the club, his mind already working, already planning. This isn't over. Not even close. The morning air is crisp as Malcolm Carter steps into the sleek glass building that houses his corporate offices. The world sees him as a powerful entrepreneur, a man who has built an empire from the ground up. But last night reminded him of something the world refuses to let him forget. No matter how much success he attains, some people will always see him as just another black man who doesn't belong. As he strides through the hallway, employees nod in respect, some standing a little straighter as he passes. They know who he is. They know the weight of his presence. But in that moment, Malcolm isn't thinking about board meetings or revenue, reports. He's thinking about the bouncer who shoved him, the eyes of the crowd watching him get humiliated, the sting of knowing he had been judged before he even spoke a word. Inside the conference room, the senior leadership of the club sits, sipping coffee and reviewing reports. The general manager, Ethan Whitmore, flashes a well-practiced smile. Mr. Carter, he greets warmly. We've got great numbers this quarter. The club has been running smoother than ever. Malcolm takes his seat at the head of the table, fingers steepled together, expression unreadable. That's good to hear, he says evenly. But before we get to that, let's talk about customer experience. Ethan straightens. Of course. We pride ourselves on creating an exclusive atmosphere, ensuring only the highest quality clientele. Malcolm nods slowly, tapping his fingers against the table. Exclusivity, he repeats. And how exactly do we define that? A brief silence. Ethan shifts in his chair. Well, you know, a standard of elegance. The right crowd. Malcolm leans forward. The right crowd? His voice is calm, but the room feels noticeably heavier. Ethan hesitates. It's about maintaining a brand image. People expect a certain atmosphere. Malcolm lets the pause stretch, watching Ethan grow increasingly uncomfortable. Then, with calculated ease, he speaks. Last night, I came to the club. I was stopped at the door, denied entry. Your bouncer refused to check the list. He laid hands on me. The room stiffens. Ethan's face drains of color. Now, Malcolm continues, eyes never leaving Ethan's. Tell me again how we ensure every guest is treated fairly. Ethan fumbles for words. That's unacceptable. I had no idea. If I had known. Malcolm holds up a hand. I don't want excuses. I want accountability. A tense silence fills the room as Malcolm gestures toward the projector screen. The lights dim, and security footage from the previous night plays. The entire room watches as Derek blocks Malcolm's entrance, waves in white patrons without question, then shoves Malcolm back. A few murmurs ripple across the table. Some shift uncomfortably, others avoid Malcolm's gaze. I want a name, Malcolm demands, his voice like steel. Ethan swallows. Derek Mason. Malcolm nods, already knowing the name before it was spoken. Good. He's about to learn what it means to be held accountable. Later that night, Malcolm steps out of his car in front of the club, this time not as a guest, but as a man with a purpose. A few board members trail behind him, suddenly eager to observe, though their silence had been deafening in the boardroom. Derek stands at his post, completely unaware of what's coming. As Malcolm approaches, Derek barely glances at him, before sneering. Didn't I tell you? Malcolm lifts a hand, cutting him off. Let me stop you right there. Ethan steps forward, clearing his throat, looking more nervous than he should. Derek, he says carefully, meet Malcolm Carter, the club's owner. Derek blinks, then blinks again. The confidence drains from his face. What? Malcolm folds his arms across his chest. You put your hands on me, humiliated me, in my own club. He steps closer, voice dropping lower. Tell me, Derek, how do you plan to fix that? Derek stammers, his mouth opening and closing. I didn't know. Malcolm tilts his head. That's the problem, isn't it? You never cared to know. A hush falls over the entrance as patrons and staff watch the scene unfold. The same people who had whispered the night before are now watching with rapt attention. Ethan steps in, pulling out a termination letter. Derek, hand over your badge and keys. Derek hesitates, looking between Ethan and Malcolm. His hands tremble as he unclips his security badge. His voice is a weak plea. Sir, please, I didn't mean... Malcolm doesn't let him finish. You didn't mean to get caught. As he strides through the hallway, employees nod in respect, some standing a little straighter as he passes. They know who he is. They know the weight of his presence. But in that moment, Malcolm isn't thinking about board meetings or revenue. Ports. He's thinking about the bouncer who shoved him, the eyes of the crowd watching him get humiliated, the sting of knowing he had been judged before he even spoke a word. Inside the conference room, the senior leadership of the club sits, sipping coffee and reviewing reports. The general manager, Ethan Whitmore, flashes a well-practiced smile. Mr. Carter, he greets warmly. We've got great numbers this quarter. The club has been running smoother than ever. Malcolm takes his seat at the head of the table, fingers steepled together, expression unreadable. That's good to hear, he says evenly. But before we get to that, let's talk about customer experience. Ethan straightens. Of course, we pride ourselves on creating an exclusive atmosphere, ensuring only the highest quality clientele. Malcolm nods slowly, tapping his fingers. Against the table, Exclusivity, he repeats. And how exactly do we define that? A brief silence. Ethan shifts in his chair. Well, a standard of elegance. The right crowd. Malcolm leans forward. The right crowd. His voice is calm, but the room feels noticeably heavier. Ethan hesitates. It's about maintaining a brand image. People expect a certain atmosphere. Malcolm lets the pause stretch, watching Ethan grow increasingly uncomfortable. Then, with calculated ease, he speaks. Last night I came to the club. I was stopped at the door, denied entry. Your bouncer refused to check the list. He laid hands on me. The room stiffens. Ethan's face drains of color. Now, Malcolm continues, eyes never leaving Ethan's. Tell me again how we ensure every guest is treated fairly. Ethan fumbles for words. That's unacceptable. I had no idea. If I had known. Malcolm holds up a hand. I don't want excuses. I want accountability. A tense silence fills the room as Malcolm gestures toward the projector screen. The lights dim, and security footage from the previous night plays. The entire room watches as Derek blocks Malcolm's entrance, waves in white patrons without question, then shoves Malcolm back. A few murmurs ripple across the table. Some shift uncomfortably, others avoid Malcolm's gaze. I want a name, Malcolm demands, his voice like steel. Ethan swallows. Derek Mason. Malcolm nods, already knowing the name before it was spoken. Good. He's about to learn what it means to be held accountable. Later that night, Malcolm steps out of his car in front of the club, this time not as a guest, but as a man with a purpose. A few board members trail behind him, suddenly eager to observe, though their silence had been deafening in the boardroom. Derek stands at his post, completely unaware of what's coming. As Malcolm approaches, Derek barely glances at him, before sneering. Didn't I tell you? Malcolm lifts a hand, cutting him off. Let me stop you right there. Ethan steps forward, clearing his throat, looking more nervous than he should. Derek, he says carefully, meet Malcolm Carter, the club's owner. Derek blinks, then blinks again. The confidence drains from his face. We what? Malcolm's folds his arms across his chest. You put your hands on me, humiliated me, in my own club. He steps closer, voice dropping lower. Tell me, Derek, how do you plan to fix that? Derek stammers, his mouth opening and closing. I didn't know. Malcolm tilts his head. That's the problem, isn't it? You never cared to know. A hush falls over the entrance as patrons and staff watch the scene unfold. The same people who had whispered the night before are now watching with rapt attention. Ethan steps in, pulling out a termination letter. Derek, hand over your badge and keys. Derek hesitates, looking between Ethan and Malcolm. His hands tremble as he unclips his security badge. His voice is a weak plea. Sir, please, I didn't mean... Malcolm doesn't let him finish. You didn't mean to get caught. Derek exhales shakily, placing his badge in Ethan's waiting hand. His once smug expression is now laced with regret, but Malcolm doesn't care for empty apologies. This isn't about me, Malcolm says, his voice loud enough for the bystanders to hear. This is about what happens when people like you think you have the right to decide who belongs and who doesn't. Derek looks down, shame washing over him. He nods stiffly, then turns and walks away, his arrogance stripped as the tension lingers in the air. Malcolm shifts his gaze to Ethan. This club needs to change, effective immediately. Ethan nods quickly, eager to please. Of course, I'll implement new policies. No. Malcolm corrects, his tone firm. I will. He turns to the employees who have gathered. We will have mandatory anti-discrimination training. We will overhaul our hiring practices, and we will no longer tolerate racial profiling at this club. His gaze sweeps the staff. If any of you have a problem with that, now is the time to leave. No one moves. A slow smirk tugs at Malcolm's lips. Good. The next morning, headlines flood social media and news outlets. Club owner fires bouncer for racial profiling, takes stand for equality. Malcolm reads the headline, then places his phone down. Across from him, Jamal shakes his head with a grin. Man, you really changed the game. Malcolm exhales, the weight of the moment sinking in. Not just the game, he murmurs. The whole damn system. News of Derek's public firing spreads fast. Social media is buzzing, business blogs are running stories, and the comment section is filled with heated debates. Some hail Malcolm as a visionary leader taking a stand against discrimination. Others accuse him of overreacting, branding him as too extreme for making an example out of Derek. Malcolm scrolls through his phone, reading headlines. Nightclub owner fires bouncer for racial profiling, a bold stand or business risk. Malcolm. Carter's club under scrutiny after public termination. Discrimination crackdown. Will other businesses follow suit? A text from Jamal pops up. Man, the internet is going crazy over this. You good? Malcolm exhales, setting his phone down. I'm good, he mutters, though he knows the storm is just beginning. Ethan, on the other hand, is in full panic mode. He paces inside Malcolm's office, phone glued to his ear, attempting damage control. Yes, we're reviewing our policies. No, this is not a reflection of our values. Absolutely. We're committed to diversity. Yes, of course. Malcolm listens unimpressed before finally cutting in. Ethan quickly ends the call, forcing a smile. Malcolm, we're not reviewing policies, Malcolm interrupts, his tone sharp. We're rewriting them, Ethan stammers. Look, I understand the need for change, but we have investors calling, worried about how this is going to affect the brand. Malcolm leans back in his chair, studying Ethan. You think this is bad for the brand? Well, Ethan hesitates. Let me tell you what's bad for the brand. Malcolm continues. Being known as the club that turns away black men in suits while letting in white boys in sneakers. That's bad for business. Ethan sighs. What do you propose? Malcolm straightens. We turn this into an opportunity. We show them that we're not just fixing a problem. We're setting a new standard. Ethan nods reluctantly, realizing there's no point arguing. All right. What do you need from me? Malcolm's voice is firm. Your full cooperation. Malcolm wastes no time. The first step, a complete overhaul of the club's policies. At a mandatory meeting, employees sit in uneasy silence as Malcolm addresses them. From this moment forward, there is zero tolerance for discrimination in this establishment. That means no more racial profiling at the door, no more treating people differently based on how they look. If that's a problem for you, there's the door. Some employees shift uncomfortably. One security guard raises his hand. So what happens if someone actually doesn't belong here? What if they don't fit the... He catches himself. But Malcolm doesn't let it slide. Fit what? Malcolm asks, his gaze steady. The guard clears his throat. The, atmosphere. Malcolm lets the silence stretch before speaking. The atmosphere here is changing. And if you don't fit, that you don't belong here. The room is tense, but no one leaves. Over the next few weeks, all employees, from management to security, undergo anti-discrimination training. Hiring policies are revamped. For the first time, the club's staff reflects the diversity of its clientele. The old unspoken rules about who gets through the door are gone, and people start noticing. Patrons who had quietly tolerated past injustices now feel the difference. There's a shift in the energy, a new sense of belonging that was never there before. One night, Jamal walks in, looking around in approval. Man, you really did it. Place feels different. Malcolm smirks. That was the point. The grand reopening is more than just a relaunch, it's a statement. A red carpet lines the entrance. Flashing lights from photographers capture the arrivals of celebrities, business moguls, and community leaders. Inside, the club is alive with music and conversation, the air charged with excitement. Malcolm stands on the VIP balcony, looking down at the crowd. This is what he envisioned, a space where people don't just exist but belong. A journalist approaches him, microphone in hand. Mr. Carter, what inspired this transformation? Malcolm turns to the camera, his expression steady. A few weeks ago, I got thrown out of my own club. Not because I didn't belong, but because someone assumed I didn't. The journalist nods, intrigued. Malcolm continues, voice calm but firm. That moment wasn't about one bouncer, and this change isn't just about one club. It's about how we decide who gets access, who gets to feel welcome, who gets to walk through the door without proving themselves. He pauses, then adds, discrimination has no place in business. Not in this city. Not in my club. The journalist lowers the mic, clearly moved. That's a powerful message. Malcolm nods. It's just the beginning. The event is a massive success. Positive press floods in. The club's reputation isn't just repaired, it's elevated. Weeks later, Malcolm steps into a different venue, one of his favorite spots in the Iwi city. As he approaches the bar, a familiar face hesitates before stepping forward. Derek, the once arrogant bouncer, looks different now, humbled, unsure. Malcolm watches as Derek exhales and finally speaks. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Malcolm studies him for a moment. Sorry for what? His tone is calm, but there's weight behind it. Derek swallows hard. For how I treated you, for all of it. I never thought about what I was doing. I don't know. It's how things were always done. Malcolm nods slowly. And now? Derek hesitates before answering. Now I get it. Malcolm lets the silence settle before responding. Change isn't comfortable, he says. But now you know better. What you do with that is up to you. Derek nods, processing the weight of Malcolm's words. I appreciate you saying that, Malcolm. Doesn't reply, just watches as Derek turns and walks away. There's no need to say anything more. The club isn't just thriving. It's leading the way. Business owners take notice, reevaluating their own policies. Other high-end venues begin to shift their approach, realizing the power of inclusivity. Malcolm doesn't stop there. He begins mentoring young Black entrepreneurs, ensuring that the next generation doesn't have to fight the same battles he did. He sits on panels, speaks at conferences, and starts initiatives to help minority-owned businesses gain access to the industry. One evening, he and Jamal sit back in the VIP lounge, watching as the club flourishes under its new culture. Jamal grins, shaking his head. You really flipped the script, man. Malcolm chuckles, sipping his drink. Nah, I just reminded them whose name is on the damn building. The grand reopening is more than just a celebration. It's a statement. The red carpet stretches down the sidewalk, lined with reporters and flashing cameras. The club's entrance, once an invisible wall separating the privileged few from the rest, now stands open to a diverse, vibrant crowd. The velvet ropes part smoothly as guests are welcomed inside without hesitation. Malcolm steps out of his luxury car, buttoning his tailored jacket, the weight of this moment settling on his shoulders. This isn't just a club opening, it's a reckoning. Jamal walks beside him, glancing at the flashing lights. Man, this is crazy. I haven't seen this much press since that Wall Street guy got caught dancing on tables. Malcolm chuckles. This isn't about scandal. It's about setting a new standard. Inside, the atmosphere is electric. The once exclusionary space now radiates something different. Energy, excitement, a new sense of belonging. The guest list is filled with business leaders, influencers, artists, and young professionals who never would have been let in before. Malcolm moves through the crowd, shaking hands, exchanging words of gratitude. Every now and then his gaze drifts to the entrance, remembering the night he was turned away. A reporter approaches, microphone extended. Mr. Carter, can we have a few words? Malcolm nods, his voice steady. Of course. The journalist adjusts her earpiece. You've completely rebranded this club in a matter of weeks. What message are you hoping to send? Malcolm looks around at the people, laughing, celebrating, thriving. That luxury isn't about exclusion. That power doesn't come from keeping people out, but from bringing the right people in. She smiles. And what about those who say this was a personal vendetta? Malcolm smirks. They're right. I got thrown out of my own club. That was all the motivation I needed. Across the street, Derek stands stiffly, hands shoved into the pockets of his worn jacket. The cold air bites at his skin, but it's nothing compared to the sting of regret settling in his chest. He watches as guests, black, white, Latino, Asian, walk through the doors without hesitation. People he once would have turned away. He overhears a couple talking as they enter. This place has changed. It actually feels welcoming now. Derek swallows hard. He had been part of the problem. He never thought about it before, never questioned the rules he enforced. But standing here now, watching the very club he used to control slip through his fingers, reality crashes in. This could have been his future. His fists clench as the neon sign above the entrance glows against the night sky. Malcolm Carter's name is attached to it now, a permanent reminder that ignorance comes with consequences. For the first time in his life, Derek feels small. He exhales sharply, debating whether to step forward, whether to walk inside and face the man who undid him. But his feet remain planted. He isn't ready to admit, to face what he's done. Not yet. Not tonight. Inside, Malcolm stands on the VIP balcony, surveying the space below. The club pulses with life. The exclusivity of the past has been replaced with something greater. Opportunity. Jamal claps him on the back. "Man, look at this. You did it." Malcolm nods slowly. "No, we did." He watches a young black man in a crisp navy suit shake hands with an investor near the bar. A group of women, dressed in elegant evening wear, discuss business strategies over cocktails. This isn't just a club anymore. It's a meeting place, a networking hub, a space where people of all backgrounds can connect without judgment. A journalist approaches, recording device in hand. "Malcolm, one last question. What does this moment mean to you?" He smirks, but there's no amusement in his expression, only certainty. "People like me, we get told we don't belong in places we build, places we fund. That ends today." The journalist tilts her head. "So, what's next for you?" Malcolm glances at the club, at the guests, at the future he's shaping. This is just the beginning. The night unfolds, laughter and music filling the air. But Malcolm knows his work isn't done. This isn't just about reclaiming a club. It's about reclaiming space, rewriting narratives, and ensuring that no one else has to fight for a seat at the table. As the celebration continues, he steps away for a moment, taking it all in. Tonight is a victory. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Derek stands outside Malcolm's office, gripping his resume so tightly that the edges crumple in his hands. The weight of the moment presses down on him. Weeks without work, without purpose, had forced him to confront the ugly truth. He wasn't just enforcing rules that night at the club. He was upholding a system designed to keep people like Malcolm out. And now, he's the one locked out. He takes a breath, exhales sharply, and pushes open the door. Inside, Malcolm sits behind a sleek desk, hands folded, eyes unreadable. He doesn't invite Derek to sit, doesn't offer a handshake. He just watches, waiting. Derek clears his throat, his voice rough. I wanted to see if you had any openings." Malcolm leans back, raising an eyebrow. "You're not here for a security job, are you?" Derek shakes his head quickly. "No, he sighs. I want to learn." Malcolm's expression doesn't change. "Learn what?" Derek shifts on his feet, suddenly feeling the weight of his own ignorance. "How to build something. How to own something." Malcolm taps his fingers against the desk, letting the silence stretch. "And why should I give you a second chance?" Derek swallows hard. "Because I finally get it. That night, I judged you without knowing you. I disrespected you in a place you built. And the worst part? I didn't even think twice about it." He shakes his head. "I was wrong." Malcolm studies him for a long moment, then finally nods. "And what do you plan to do about it?" Derek watches as Malcolm slides a piece of paper across the desk. He hesitates before picking it up, his eyes scanning the header. Business Development Scholarship Application. He blinks, looking back up at Malcolm. "This isn't a job application, Derek says, confused. Malcolm leans forward. No, it's an opportunity. Derek exhales, rubbing the back of his neck. You're giving me a scholarship after everything I did? Malcolm's voice is firm. I don't just want you to work for me. I want you to understand what it takes to own something, to build something bigger than yourself. Derek stares down at the paper, his hands trembling. I don't know if I deserve this. Malcolm nods slowly. Then prove that you do. The words settle in Derek's chest, heavy but necessary. He grips the application tighter, feeling something he hasn't felt in a long time. Hope. This isn't just about getting a job. This is about breaking free from the cycle, from the mindset that got him here in the first place. Derek lifts his head, nodding once. I won't waste this. Malcolm studies him, then extends a hand. Then don't. For the first time, in weeks, Derek feels like he has a future. Months later, Malcolm walks through his club, the air filled with music, conversation, and energy. It's no longer an exclusive space reserved for a select few. It's a place where success isn't measured by privilege, but by possibility. He stops near the entrance, watching as guests from all walks of life move freely through the space. No more profiling, no more barriers. Just people, enjoying the night. A young black man, sharp in his tailored suit, stands at the door, scanning the crowd. When he sees Malcolm, his posture straightens, a respectful nod replacing the nervousness that once filled this space. Welcome back, Mr. Carter, he says with quiet confidence. Malcolm smiles, the moment sinking in. He nods in return, stepping inside. Because now, everyone belongs.